The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome back. We're so excited to be here this week of Valentine's Day. We've got a lot going on today and all this week. Excited to be here. I like to start the show by reminding you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, even if you just want to rant or just say hello. We like for you to participate with us. So Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate in the show, including ways that you can watch the show and comment. I will remind you while he's showing you all those different ways that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's so much to do. Please, please, please sign up for our free email list. We will let you know what's happening, who's going to be on, when they're going to be on. I know that Temple Grandin is going to be on sometime very soon, and we won't get much notice when she's available. So when we know, we want to be able to send that message out to people, but we can't unless we have your email. We will not abuse it. We don't sell it. Also, when you go to autism-live.com, you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show. You can actually scroll back through and pick all the shows that we've ever done on that little playlist icon that's in that upper, I guess that would be left-hand corner, right? Now, to the side of all that, though, is the live feature. And that's a really exciting thing because if you put your cursor in the box that says your question, you start typing and hit enter, it will show up here on my screen. And that's literally all you have to do. There is no login, there's no username, there's no password, there's no discussion about a credit card because it's all free. And I absolutely love that. It's something that I'm really proud of, that we give you an opportunity to talk to all the experts that we have here and pick their brains, right? It's a really good thing to do, and there's absolutely no cost to it. We want you to take your dollars and put them towards other things because we know you've got other things on your list. Which brings me to also that we really try to cover on this show autism from a 360-degree perspective. You know, what's happening in your world, and we know that everybody's world is different in this community, but we hope that we'll hit on topics that will be of interest to you. But why wait for that? Tell us what you want to hear more about. You guys have been writing in many things. I know last week somebody said that they wanted the two gentlemen from the Asperger expert.com, and we have now, they're going to be on the show in a couple of weeks, so we're very excited about that. We listen when you tell us what you want. So write and tell us who you want to see on the show, what you want us to be talking about. We'll be happy to try to plug that in as best as we can. We've got a really exciting show for you, but I mentioned that we have a large array of experts who come on the show, and that's a wonderful thing. But I always like to remind you at the start of the show that while we'll have many experts, I am not one of them. I just want to be upfront about that always and remind you that I know that I am not an expert in autism at all. I'm a parent and a former teacher. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is a fabulous, remarkable, miraculous 11-and-a-half-year-old, and I adore every thing about him, every breath he takes. And we were so lucky that we got access to services and support and therapies that helped him on his journey to be able to do all the things that he wants to do. He's still working on those things, as we all are, right? But I couldn't be prouder of him and all the work that he's done, and more grateful for all the help that we got. And that's part of the reason why I'm here hosting the show, is that I want to help you to be as lucky as I have been, to get access to the things that are meaningful to you, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. We hope that that we can help you to get to the good stuff, right? All the stuff that you want to do, not to fit into somebody else's mold of who they think you should be or who they think your child should be. That's not what we're about, but to be able to help everybody to get to that progress that helps them to be who they want to be. That's what it's all about. So we hope that you'll participate with us here, and remember, not an expert, but ask our experts the questions. That's a good thing to do. All right, at the start of every morning, we like to do a little warm-up that we call the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to put this into some semblance of sense so that we know what the experts are talking about and how does it, more importantly, how does it apply to us? In the beginning of our autism journey, and people would say these phrases, and I would go, really, really, you can't come up with something simpler than that? And is this really important that I learn this term? And over the years, I realized, yeah, it kind of is, because it saves time if we understand what they're talking about, and these things key us into that progress that we all want to get to. So today, going back to the beginning, there was a moment last week on Ask Dr. Doreen, where we had Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson come in and talk about a problem that she was having in her home that I thought we could all relate to, and we all kind of did, I think. And Dr. Grant Pichet sat here with Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and I and said, okay, ladies, let's go back to the beginning here. And when you want to change behavior, you have two things that can help you to do that. What are they? And it was just such a great quiz. I got so excited because I said, I know. It's antecedent and consequence. And I was so pleased because that was the right answer. And it reminded me that we haven't done antecedent for a while. So we are going back to the beginning. What is an antecedent? And, before my son was diagnosed with autism, I think I had heard of this word before, but had no idea what it meant. Wasn't something that I was using in my everyday conversation. So now I understand that it's largely half of my life that I look at through a lens that has to do with antecedents. So what is it? All right, here is our actual definition. Antecedent: anything that occurs or is present immediately before the behavior of interest. Still meant nothing to me when I looked this up. What the heck does that have to do with my life? And then our working definition of this is what happened before. Very simply, when we talk about behavior, and as a parent or as a teacher, it used to drive me mad because if somebody said, what's happening that's preventing you from getting to the good stuff, or what's kicking your can today, I could usually get it down to, well, so-and-so is doing X, Y, or Z. That would be the behavior, right? And that was the thing that I was focused on. Well, they're throwing paper in my classroom, and I don't like that. That's the behavior that's happening. And I, as a parent and as a teacher, sometimes before I knew what I was doing, would get into that habit of yakking at them about it. Well, stop that. Don't do that. Don't you understand why that's not a good idea? Somebody could get hurt. This is not how we, yakety yak, that Peanuts voice of the teacher who goes, womp, 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 right? Because they're not really listening to it. And what I've learned over the years is that behavior, we all want to change the behavior, but the actual behavior itself is sometimes just going to be too much for us to do. Because what are we going to do? Tie their hands down and not let them throw paper? You physically can't make someone stop doing a behavior, but the power is in looking at what the antecedent is, which is the thing that happened before the behavior, and in the consequence, which is what happens after the behavior. This is where the power is. If you think about the child who's sitting in a doctor's office and kicking his foot against the chair, and you want the child to be quiet, and again, you go back to the stop that, stop that. Don't do that. Stop that. Stop that. At what point do we realize that's not getting it done? If we begin to look at behavior in that three-term contingent way of looking at it, that there's an antecedent, something happened before the child started kicking the leg of the chair. Something happened. What was it? Was it that the child got bored? Was it that somebody asked the child to do something that they didn't want to do? Was there a noise that happened? Was there a light that went on? Something happened that created this bubble in which the behavior happened. Now, we can deal with it with a consequence. We can, if the child is at a reasoning stage and has enough receptive language, we can say to the child, don't do that or something is going to happen, or stop doing that and something will happen, right? We can do that. But a lot of times we can use this idea of antecedent to get there before the behavior happens. If we know that a child is likely to go into a doctor's office and start kicking the chair, and we look at that behavior and go, why is that happening? We always know on the show that all behavior has some sort of a reward or it won't keep happening, right? So what is the reward for kicking the chair? And if it's happening out of boredom, maybe the reward is that it makes a noise, which kind of passes the time. Maybe the reward is that mom starts acting like a complete buffoon and going, stop that, which is pretty entertaining, you got to admit. So what do we do beforehand so that the child doesn't get bored and doesn't need that attention and that floor show that mom is doing? Maybe it means bringing an activity that could be a cell phone, it could be a coloring book, depending on the child's age and skill, right? To give them something to do so that we don't get to the point where they need to be kicking the chair. I learned as a classroom teacher that if kids were throwing paper in my classroom, it's because I didn't set things up to make them so excited to be doing something else that they had no time to think about throwing paper. So whenever we start to look at a behavior, even now, if somebody, if I go to school and the teacher said, oh, we had a problem today, such and such happened, right? I always say, what happened before? Because if we know what happened before, and if we can somehow change those circumstances, we're going to be more effective at changing the behavior than standing there and saying, stop that, don't do that, do this instead, right? The example, when we were talking with Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and Dr. Granpeche last week, Nancy was saying that something had happened with her son when he was making his eggs and the cheese, and there was a conversation between her son and dad about that he was using too much cheese. And Dr. Granpeche said, I think we needed antecedent modification here. Instead of it being a discussion every morning about him using too much cheese, let's just get the bag of cheese, Daiya cheese, that's, has no actual milk in it, and let's separate it into little baggies that we give to him and say, here, make your eggs, and this is how much cheese. It's pre-measured. There's no discussion about it. And, he's back to making his eggs, happy camper, and there's no argument, there's no meltdown, there's no stress, right? And I'm happy to say that Nancy called me and said it has worked like a charm. That is an antecedent modification. You get there before the crisis. You get there before the behavior. And it's amazing when you can make an antecedent modification work, how great it is. So remember, antecedent is what happened before, and you do have a whole lot of power when it comes to what happened before. You can do this with yourself as well. If you're thinking, ooh, I want to change this behavior that I have, and you ask yourself, okay, when I engage in this behavior, what is the thing that happens right before? If you're eating late at night, you might ask yourself, what is happening right before I find myself at the refrigerator, and can I change that? Ooh, powerful, powerful, powerful behavior change when you start to think of things as having an antecedent. That's our jargon for the day. Okay, we always have a question that we like to ask you, that we love to look and see what you guys have written on Facebook. It goes hand in hand with our antecedent jargon. What behavior would you most like to change? Now remember, this can be a behavior in yourself, this can be a behavior in your child, this can be a behavior in a coworker. Oh, this could be a behavior in your spouse. It's kind of like a new toy that you can think to yourselves, okay, my husband is doing this and I don't like that behavior, and I could yak at him at it, or I could think of it, what is happening right before he does that behavior and what is within my power to change to do that. I'd love to know what you guys decide, what behavior you want to work on, and if you can come up with an antecedent modification to see if you can change the behavior. It's like a magic trick, and it works. So write in and let us know, but we're going to take a look a little bit later on at what you guys wrote in and give you maybe some suggestions about how you might look at the antecedent of that behavior. We always have a topic for the week, and our topic this week, stolen right out of Dr. Granpeche's mouth, back to basics, because she reminded me that whenever we start to talk about behavior, it's all about going back to the basics. It's good for all of us. It doesn't matter what age we are, what skill level we have, or what skill level we have with a person that we're working with. We want to go back to those basics because it's all in the basics. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. Somewhere in that mix, we've got the power to change that behavior. So that's what we're going to be talking about all week. We've got a really exciting show today. I'm so excited about our guests that are going to be on the show today. Already with us, he's waiting to come on the show, Jonathan Carlander, a first-time filmmaker with a lovely short film called The Pleasing List. He's going to be here with us talking. Jonathan he identifies himself as being an Aspie and being proud of it, and we're thrilled that he's going to be talking with us about this film, what inspired it, and what kind of reaction that it's gotten and what he hopes to do with it in the future. So he's going to be joining us right after the next break. We've got some autism news for you that we're really excited. I know it's been a lot of bad news, but we've got some exciting news for you as well. And then in our second hour today, we have Amanda Kelly going to be joining us from Hawaii. She's otherwise known as Behavior Babe. And she's going to be talking with us about what Hawaii and the Hawaii Autism Behavior Association, I believe it's HABA, I think that's what it stands for. I'll make sure before she's here. A decision that they recently made of how they want to make sure that their parents in Hawaii get the training that they need. It's something that's very close to home for us, and we think that they've really set the bar very high. We're very proud of Hawaii's decision to make sure that parents get the training that they need. So Amanda's Behavior Babe is going to be with us to talk about that and much more. She's got an app out that I can't wait to hear more about. So all of that and ever so much more here on Autism Live. Stick with us. We'll be right back with Jonathan Carlander.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yes.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, We wouldn't be able to receive the service dog, so we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, Act Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear Act Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm so excited because we have here in the studio with us a freshman filmmaker. Jonathan Carlander is here with us, and he has made a lovely short film called The Pleasing List. And we want to make sure that folks know where to find this. So we've kind of gone over, there's lots of different places where they can find it. You have a YouTube page. You've got a Facebook for it, lots of different places. But let's talk first about where, because I know they're going to want to watch it. So if they go to YouTube, youtube.com/The Pleasing List, a short film about Asperger's. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
I know it's a long title, but I had to. You got to promote your film somehow.
That's right, and people will know where to find it and get it. So, Jonathan, I got to start with the fact that you identify yourself as somebody. You said earlier, I'm an Aspie, and I'm proud of it.
And I
am, which is a wonderful thing. I think that that's absolutely great. I know we've got viewers who are like, yes, they want to hear that. So, tell us a little bit about your background. When were you diagnosed, and how old are you now, and what's your life like now?
Sure. Well, I'm 24 years old, and I was diagnosed when I was about 5 years old, I believe.
Okay.
And it's really funny because I grew up knowing that I was different and that I was on the autism spectrum, but when I was 12 years old, I heard Asperger syndrome for the first time. I was driving in the car with my mother, and she said, well, like I had a bad day at school, and she had said, well, that's kind of how it is for some children with Asperger syndrome. And I said, I have Asperger syndrome? That's just wonderful, Mom. And ever since then, I've sort of educated myself on the subject matter, and I'm not an expert in any way, but I'm an expert on myself. I know myself, because everybody with Asperger's is as individual as you and I are.
Yeah.
You don't have to be neurotypical in order to have differences in opinion, differences in viewing the world, and things like that.
Absolutely. But clearly, you've taken a proactive look at this and said, this is who I am, this is great. At what point did you decide that you wanted to make films?
I can't think of a time that I didn't want to make films. I mean, I've wanted to make films my whole life, probably ever since I was 5 years old. And back in those days, they had these things called VHSs and VHS players. There was no such thing as Blu-rays in those days. Blu-rays was like years away. I used to watch movies on there. That's where I have my fondest memories, actually, was not being in the theater necessarily, but at home, because, you get free food, you get a front row seat. And I remember, I think it was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with Kirk Douglas that made me go, okay, I have to do this. I have to work in films.
So when did you first get your first camera and decide to shoot your first little bit of a film.
I don't remember how old I was, but I live in Camarillo, and there used to be a camera store, a camera rental store, and my mom and I rented a camera one day, and we did something called The Jonathan Show, where it was me interviewing my father, asking him questions and giving him like a hat as a prize for winning questions. Very low production value, but I was couldn't have been more than 10 years old.
Wow.
And that was a great experience. So, and eventually, when I turned 15, I heard about Joey Travolta's Entertainment Experience Camp, and made some films with him. And when I was about 20, I made my first film on my own that wasn't class related, and it was a horror film called The Price. And made that with my friends, and I sort of haven't stopped since then.
It's remarkable, remarkable. And you brought up Joey Travolta. We were just showing a clip about a camp that he did. He's an amazing. We're huge fans of inclusion films.
Oh my God, yeah.
And want people to know, because we have people who watch this show all over the world, and sometimes, because we're here in Los Angeles, we will have a lot of different things that happen in this area and happen in California. But I love talking about Joey because he goes all over the United States during the summer and does camps everywhere. So that's, one of our greatest resources comes to places that I'll bet are close to you at some point during a given year. And I think when you feed somebody's passion, there's no better thing to do in the world. We've talked with Temple Grandin about this, about how important it is that when you see that your kid is interested in something, let them have a way to explore that in a way that is unique and wonderful. And Joey does that for all of our kids that are interested in filmmaking and interested in being in the entertainment industry. So I applaud your parents for making sure that you had an opportunity to do that. I think that's really remarkable. And now here you are with a short film out. So do you want to show the clip from the film and then come back and talk about it? What would you like to do?
Absolutely, just to give them an idea of what they're in store for.
Okay, but let's give them a little bit of background, that this is a film it's about really, I think, what it's like to be on the spectrum, and maybe the Asperger end of the spectrum, and how maybe there's a perception of needing to do things to make other people happy. Am I in the right realm?
You're in the ballpark. You're in the right ballpark. I mean, the movie is, in literal terms, it's about a film student with Asperger syndrome who wants to have a relationship with this other student named Sarita, and he goes on this date with her for the first time, and he writes up what he calls the pleasing list, because he's a screenwriter, aspires to be a screenwriter, and the list is basically a list of to-dos and to-don'ts. So that's literally what it's about, but aesthetically it is about how I think everybody has a pleasing list, but especially those on the spectrum, because we are not necessarily encouraged to be who we really are, because people get blinded by the diagnosis and the general statistics and the labels and what have you. And the movie is about this character who is denying who he really is. And it's sort of like a movie that I loved growing up as a child, Phantom of the Opera, and how he wears the mask and he doesn't want anybody to see who it is. And then comes along the character of Christine, and she loves him for who he is. So the movie is metaphorically like a Beauty and the Beast type of story. So that's
but very uplifting. We're not going to give anything away, but very uplifting. Great message. So let's take a look at a clip from the movie when you have a wonderful scene where we get to see what it's like when too much is happening, when there's a sensory overload. I think it's really well done, Jonathan. So this is towards the end of the movie, but we're not giving anything away again. The interchange, but after the date has gone kind of south, and these two young people are talking about it. So this is from The Pleasing List, directed by Jonathan Carlander.
Chris, are you all right?
Sarita, I'm so sorry I embarrassed you last night. It's just that, well, I'm not like most people. I have this condition. It's called Asperger's syndrome. It's a mild form of autism.
You know, before I moved to LA, I had a best friend that had Asperger's syndrome. She was a little awkward in social places, but she was really smart. And that's what I like about you. And that's why I wanted to hang out with you last night. So I guess now I know not to have dinner with you in such a busy place.
What do you mean?
I really want to go out with you again, Chris. I really do. Autism or no autism.
Just a short scene from the pleasing list. And again, this is a film that Jonathan directed. Jonathan Carlander, we're here with him discussing this. This is really your first complete short film?
This is the first. The films that I had mentioned before, like The Price and the things I did with Joey and the things I would do on my own, those were just basically me holding the camera and being the one-man crew and whatnot. Sort of like what that filmmaker Robert Rodriguez does, like he's all over the place. But The Pleasing List was my first complete short film where I was literally directing a crew of other film students and directing actors, or at least people aspiring to be professional actors, rather than just getting my friends together.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the actor who is playing the young man who has Asperger's in the film. How did you find him?
Ken Ashton, fantastic actor. He's currently doing a web series, I believe, and he deserves every bit of success. I went to lacasting.com, which is a wonderful site for casting directors and student filmmakers. I had used it previously on a project for school, and I went there and I basically posted the part. And it's funny because I wasn't expecting that I was going to get that many submissions, but literally within a couple of days, 25 submissions, 25 actors submitting their headshots. And Ken was one of them, and he had said, he had made a little note saying that I have experience with autism. I'm like, okay, I'm going to not necessarily cast him, but I want to meet him. And he told me that he had experience being around children on the spectrum, like he had been to, I think, summer camps and things. And he, you know, we did the screen test, the audition with him, and it's like me and my casting director my casting assistant was, we were both like, okay, I believe it. I believe everything that he did.
Now, did you have to spend a lot, so he already had some experience, but did you spend a lot of time talking with him, especially for that scene where you get to see sensory-wise what he's seeing? Did you spend a lot of time telling him what it's like for you, or did you tell him what it was like for other people? How did you approach that?
To be honest, it was really in the script.
Okay.
A lot of it was in the script, and I did go over some things with him, but he had such good instincts and such a good, thorough knowledge of it. Like when, for example, when we did the screen test with him, the audition for the first time, he would, you know, in the script I had during that scene, not to give too much away, but the character Chris is kind of doing this and he's kind of groaning. Yeah. And in the audition he was doing just that. Yeah. And I didn't even tell him to do that.
Okay.
And so there wasn't that much discussion with the actors because they were so great, and I think that the script helped. A lot of it came from just the script.
Well, it's got a wonderful message. It's beautifully shot, as we just saw. People can watch this entire film. It's available for them to watch for free. It's about 9 minutes or so long.
9 minutes and 2 seconds. So not very long.
The filmmaker would know. So again, they can go to youtube.com/The Pleasing List, a short film about Asperger's. That's where you can find it. You can also, they've got a Facebook page, and you can also Google Jonathan Carlander to be able to find it. So Jonathan, are you in school right now? Is that part of why this happened? Was this part of a school thing, or totally on your own?
Well, I graduated from Columbia College Hollywood last June, and I was in a thesis class in my final year, and as part of the requirement, you had to work on a thesis film. But it didn't have to necessarily be your thesis film.
Okay.
Even if you were literally like a grip for 3 days on somebody else's project, you would get your grade. But
okay.
And I was an editing major, not a film directing it, but I was an editing major. But in my final year, I was like, you know what, I want to make my own film. I want to say something that is personal about me as a person, and so I made the film, shot the film in literally 2 days, and did it entirely on my own. You know, it was not required of me to do it, but I think in order to succeed in the arts, you need to go above and beyond what is just required of you, and that's how you succeed in college too.
Yeah. So what do you want to do now?
Well, my hope is the industry will embrace the film, give me a chance, and hopefully I'll be directing films, and I hope to get the Pleasing List made as a feature at some point. I already have some ideas of story-wise on how to expand upon it, and again, it's gotten, you know, I can't tell you the number of people who have written to me saying your film brought me to tears, or your film has given me hope for my child, and that's way better than any, you know, student award or anything that I'll ever get.
And I'm just wondering, because it seems like a very popular thing in the entertainment industry right now to have characters who are on the autism spectrum, and in particularly are on the Asperger end of things. You know, we've seen The Bridge had a main character that was Asperger's. We just watched, there's a new show, and I wish I could think what it is, but my husband and I just watched the pilot of it the other day, where clearly the young man on it is on the Asperger end of things. I don't know if you saw The Imitation Game. The movie that's out right now, that where Benedict Cumberbatch plays a character who clearly has Asperger's. It just seems like it's a very popular thing right now. But for you, as you're watching these kinds of things, do you feel like there's anything that's accurate, inaccurate, anything you've liked, anything that you haven't liked?
One of my favorite movies about that is called Mozart and the Whale.
I haven't seen that.
It's a great movie. It's a love story between two Aspies, and it's extremely accurate. I mean, in fact, it's written by the man who wrote Rain Man, Ronald Bass, and I met him, and I told him at Joey's, believe it or not. I met him at Joey's. He was a guest speaker, and I told him, because the main character, Donald Morton, who is played by Jeff, I forget his name. But anyway, the protagonist has the Asperger's, and he flaps his hands, and I flap my hands too when I get a little bit anxious or whatnot. And I just said to him, you know what, I really appreciate you putting that in there and getting that accurate. So I'm kind of always on guard when I watch those kinds of movies, and I think my film stands out a little bit because it's not a neurotypical filmmaker trying to guess what the experience of an Aspie is like. It's coming from the source.
Yeah, it comes right from the heart. Well, I think it's remarkable. I think you're remarkable. I think you're going to do a lot of great things. We're very excited that you're here so that we can say, oh, we knew him when.
Well, thank you in my Oscar speech.
Hey, you heard it here. I'm holding you to that.
Okay.
But no, I think it's wonderful, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So congratulations to you, and congratulations to your parents for making sure that you had a way to feed that passion. So.
Well, my parents are teachers, and so they know a little bit about it, but in all seriousness, I love my parents so much, and they've been incredibly supportive of me no matter what, and I'll love them no matter what, but especially for not going, maybe you should do something else. It's like, no, you want to do this, you got the gift, we're going to encourage you.
Well, all of us parents needed to hear that today, didn't we? What a wonderful, wonderful tribute. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here, and we'll look forward to having you back on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we're going to take a break now, and we'll be back with more of Autism Live after these messages. Stick with us.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for military families 10K and 5K run, walk, and family fun festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder, so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma, working with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I'm personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to ACT Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here, of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being ACT Today that does a fantastic job.
ACT Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does ACT Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight two battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you're gonna have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Wanted to give you, we've had so much negative news. Wanted to have something positive, the palate cleanse. I'm all about that. There's a huge story that's been all over the press in the last couple of days about the Rising Tide Car Wash in Parkland, Florida. And it's a story that we've covered before on the show and talked about the important work that they're doing there, that over 80% of their staff at the car wash are members of the autism community. They're people who are on the spectrum, and they are employing them there. Again, the Rising Tide Car Wash, Parkland, Florida. And I have said before that we needed to have them on the show. They are going to be on the show. The dad and the brother are going to be on the show talking about how this idea was inspired, that the younger son is on the autism spectrum, and the dad wanted to make sure that he could have a job. And once he saw what an awesome job that his son was doing, he wanted to open it up to more people. It's turned into quite a thing. It's quite an inspirational story. So we just want to remind all of you to set your clocks and your timers that next Tuesday at 10:20 in the morning that we are going to have I believe it's pronounced Darius family on the show with us. They're going to be Skyping with us from the Rising Tide Car Wash in Parkland, Florida. So that's next Tuesday. As you're watching the show, the different coverage of it in the next couple of days, remember that you can ask them questions here on our show next Tuesday. So inspirational, this idea of helping our individuals on the spectrum to find gainful employment. And I know that they're going to tell us an exciting story about how beneficial it is to their business. So this is the thing. We've been talking about Joey Travolta all morning long because Joey Travolta, as I always like to say, is the real deal. And Joey always says, why wouldn't you hire individuals who are on the autism spectrum? They're the best possible employees you could ever find in the world. They're on time. They care deeply about what they're doing. They are meticulous about making sure that they do a good job. They are the soul of responsibility. They don't believe in lying. They are just amazing, amazing workers and far exceed what you're going to find in the neurotypical job pool. Just saying. So good news for a change, right? All right, we are going to take a break now. We're going to be back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide, and 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested. They're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let Taka help you. We'll have some more Taka facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We asked you guys a question today. What behavior would you most like to change? And I said, open season, is it a behavior that you're doing? Is it a behavior that your child, your student is engaging in? And we got a couple of responses, and one in particular that I really want to talk about because it leads to my favorite subject. And it was sent, and I'm going to sneeze now. This is live. Excuse me. Okay, nothing I can do. All right. So sorry. Nothing like sharing. Okay. But anyway, this comment came in from one of my favorite people, from our friends at Autism Will Not Define My Son. They wrote in and said, Defiance, 5-year-old little boy, I got to take my glasses off, who when you tell him no, he looks at you and does it anyway. When you tell him to come here, he looks at you and runs in the opposite direction. And she said, yeah, he's delayed. The terrible twos are hitting him now. Well, I'm glad that you realize that that's part and parcel of what it is, because sometimes we get into a mode where we're like, oh, why are things getting more difficult instead of getting better? And, it may very well be a measure of the terrible twos. And why do the terrible twos come? We go back to our jargon of the day, which is antecedent. So what is the thing that happens right before the terrible twos come? And what that is that the child begins to realize what they want and that there is a way to convey it, usually through spoken language, but they don't have the facility to do it with the speed with which they used to get what they want. That's really what the terrible twos are about, because before that, you know, you kind of go with the flow. You don't really have a choice, but there is a cognitive shift that happens with kids when they realize, wait a second, I do have the ability to impact what happens next. They start to realize antecedents, whether they, you know, they're certainly not calling it that, but they start to realize, oh, when I throw a fit, this is what happens. And when I do this, this is what happens. So they begin to try to manipulate us. So those kinds of compliance things, first of all, are a sign of intelligence. Yay! And they're a sign of growth. So I just want to give you a hug and tell you that you're moving in the right direction, and maybe give you some tips to deal with defiance. I love to, from time to time, do like the little mini class in compliance, because I always say the compliance, it's like the choice between, you know, the happy face and the tragic face, the little masks, because it's the best of times, worst of times, depending on whether you've got compliance on board or not. And by the way, there are some great lessons on compliance that are available in the skills program that will go into detail more what I'm going to gloss over very quickly. But here's the deal with compliance. And as an autism parent, I'm very particular about compliance, because I don't want just a fully compliant child who will do whatever anybody tells him to do, right? I don't want that. I'm not interested in that kind of compliance. I'm interested in the kind of compliance where my child is happy and wants to do the things that help him, and that he gets rewarded for it, and that we build our loving trust and relationship, but that a total stranger coming in asks him to do something that he knows he shouldn't do, that he doesn't have that kind of compliance. So just want to put that out there first. And how do you get to that? Well, first of all, you got to look at it a slightly different way. In terms, and it's going to hurt a little bit when you think about it this way, because you go, well, they should just want to do, right? I remember when I used to think that way. I still think that way sometimes. But we have to ask ourselves, what's in it for them? What's in it for being compliant? And I always like to take it back to something that sometimes people get offended, but let's talk about training a dog first. And I realize our kids are not dogs, but it's so simplistic with a dog that you go, oh, okay, wait a second, I get it. And then you can apply it to kids. There was a perfect example yesterday. We were sitting at the table doing homework with my son, and my dog was outside barking because one of the neighbors was running their weed whacker. I know that for those of you on the East Coast and who are buried in snow, you probably just want to choke me for saying that, but we're in weed whacker weather, edging weather here in California, and I apologize to you for that, but it makes my dog bark. And my dog likes to go outside and just bark her fool face off at the neighbor who's doing the weed whacker. And we were having a moment that was a little stressful with the homework, because my husband and I don't understand the math. I'm sorry, we just don't. And we were both like, oh, I'm kind of done with this. So, and then the dog is barking, which is making it harder, and we knew the neighbors weren't going to be happy. So my husband got up and he went to the door and called the dog in. And the dog is usually pretty good about coming in, but she really wanted to bark at the weed whacker, right? And my husband was being a little sharp because of the math homework, and he was saying, Daisy, get in here. And, you know, that isn't the best of possible circumstances, right? But he's a human being. But the dog did come in, because she has such a great relationship with my husband. She did come in, and he was a little like, ah, and kind of slammed the door shut past her. And I went, good dog, good doggy, good dog for coming in. And then my husband, of course, completely remembered as a good ABA parent, and went over and got her a treat and petted her and said, good doggy for listening, because he asked her to come away from something that she loved. And he asked her in a very sharp voice, and she still obeyed. Now, why did she obey? Because so many different times when we said to her, come in, we stopped everything and we rewarded her. And we don't always anymore. We just don't. I wanted to make sure we rewarded her because she did such a good job coming when it was something else that she wanted to do. But okay, how do we set up that circumstance with our dog, and how do we set up that circumstance with a child? You know, the first thing is we have to try to catch them doing something good so that we have an opportunity to reinforce them. And whenever we reinforce in the beginning, we want to praise and heap the praise on, but usually in the beginning for our kids on the autism spectrum, really for any kid, that's not going to be enough. It's not meaningful to them yet. So we have to pair the praise with something that is meaningful to them. Now, you know, what a great week when it's Valentine's Day to talk about how do people feel reinforced and how do people feel loved. You know, whenever we are trying to find a gift for someone, we should be thinking not about how we are reinforced, but how are they reinforced. And there are the love languages. Some people feel love by being praised. They do. Some people feel love by what you do for them. That they want you to do something for them to make their life easier, or you bake a cake for them that shows that you thought about them. Some people feel that love and that reinforcement by being touched, like, you know, having a loving touch to the head, or having their hair ruffled, or being tickled, or being hugged, right? And again, some people, it's what you say. And then there's another category of people that you give them something that's tangible, and that could be, you know, for Valentine's Day, we were talking about this the other day. Some women want jewelry. Some people want flowers. I said I wanted my husband to vacuum. You know, I mean, it's individual. Same thing with our kids. You've got to, but be smart, because praise is cheapest, right? And you want to be able to build something into them for the rest of their lives that's not going to cost you thousands of dollars, whenever. So pair whatever the other language of love that they have with the praise of saying you did a great job while you're ruffling the hair, or tickling, or giving them the cookie, or hugging them, or whatever the thing is that's meaningful to them, or getting their favorite toy out, or giving them something, right? Pair it with praise so that eventually you can slowly remove the praise. But the key here is you got to know what will reinforce them, and then you got to find an excuse, I tell you, to give it to them. So we catch them doing something good. And if we don't catch them doing something good, then we ask them to do something that we know that they already want to do, right? So if it's your child who is obsessed with trains, and things are going off the rails, and you're having a moment where the child is not being compliant, instead of having the discussion and saying no, and you need to be compliant, and you need to be wop, 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 right? Stop everything and say, can you go get your train for mommy? Can you go get your train? And if it's something that the child truly wants to do, they will stop doing what they're doing, and they'll go get their train, and then praise them for that. Good job. Give the tickles, give the cookie, give whatever the thing is that is important to them while you're heaping on the praise. Hug them, have that moment of closeness, and the child will go, you know, I don't really know what's going on, but I like it, right? And then you can use something called behavioral momentum, that, you know, you move into the next thing. Maybe the next thing that you ask is a little bit harder for them to do. Maybe it's not the full-on thing that you were asking them to do, but it's the next thing, like, oh, you know, can you sit up at the chair so mommy can get you a glass of juice? And the child sits up in the chair. Thank you so much for doing such a good job. So that you work your way up into the thing of doing the thing that's difficult for them. But it is just like getting a train on the tracks, right? You get the front wheels on, and then you got to get the next wheels on, and then everything clicks along. If you've got a child that you asked to do something that they wanted to do, and you praise them, and then you ask them to do something that's a little bit harder, and you ask them to praise, and then you ask them to do something else, and you praise it, and then you get to the thing that was a little bit difficult that a half an hour ago would have caused a tantrum or would have caused a no, they're riding the train of I get what I want when I do it, and you'll find that more often than not, they'll do it. It's an amazing thing. And if you keep doing this in your everyday, and you find as many times in the day, shift your focus, not from when he's not listening, right? shift your focus to all the times that he does listen and praise and praise and praise, you'll find that he very quickly wants to do the things that connect the two of you together for that moment. And after a period of time, you can start to fade whatever the reward was, and it will maintain with praise if you've done it often enough and if you've done it in the right way with something that was really meaningful to them. It does work. It's amazing. And it takes a little bit of time in the beginning, and it takes the patience, because I do think there's a reward for parents of doing the wampa wampa, you know, why don't you listen to me? I love to hear myself say that. I wish that somebody would listen to me, right? That's just a reward for me. It doesn't change the behavior. You know, if you have to, go into the garage and say that to nothing because it's as effective. It will give you the reward of just getting the, you know, or call me up and go, I hate it when he doesn't listen to me, right? But when you say it to him, it's not going to get it done. But especially make sure that you reinforce when he comes to you. I know this little boy loves you. So he'll be thrilled and excited by that. And then write to me and tell me how that works. It's a new toy. Anyway, we've gone over, we need to go to the A word, but I love talking about compliance because it's, you want to talk about getting to the good stuff. That's where the good stuff is. And I want to remind you too that the lessons are all in skills. So, but we do need to go to the A word, and this is an ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who you can see him going through this. There's a whole series of these episodes where they're talking about him and compliance and how they get him to compliance walking down the sidewalk and not biting his mom. Check it out, and you can see that kind of compliance training in action. But take a look at this week's episode of The A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Yes, I do. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Hi, Diana.
Hi.
What are you looking at?
Is this Diana?
Hi, Jack Riley. How are you?
Jack Riley has been in preschool for a few days now, with Jessica as his shadow. Today, his team meets to discuss how school is going, such as how Jack Riley's behaviors have been, and how his teacher is handling him, and what they can do to help.
The first 2 days, I was kind of feeling her out because she's actually new to teaching preschool, I guess, in general. So I didn't want to make her a little bit nervous. I was telling her, you know, it's always okay to reinforce appropriate behavior. Like, don't forget to do that.
Yeah.
So I was showing her a lot with other kids as well as him. Looks like there's room for growth. She just seems to kind of is trying to get into the whole hang of preschool. But I just reminded her like why I'm there, to slowly wean myself out and have you take over.
Yes. How much are you able to back off and let him kind of do his thing?
Outside play, pretty much 95%.
Awesome. It's just the play.
It's just the outside play.
The tantrums, what's evoking the tantrums?
It was snack time, because they provide a snack at school, and yesterday was like bagels and cream cheese and like diced pears, and he wanted neither. But instead of saying, hey, I don't want that, he started to flip out. And then I reminded him he had goldfish, he just has to use words appropriately. Good job. And then after that, he wanted milk, but he didn't have milk. You're almost done with the level. Okay. So he got really, really upset, and then he felt that if he screamed it louder, he would get it. So I said, no, that's because you didn't have it. So I told him once, and then it still wasn't okay. I had to pull him out because the other kids were getting a little bit uneasy. So I didn't want to direct him to him. So I let him have it outside for 2-3 minutes. After he calmed down, I just told him, you don't have it.
Let's make the
So either drink water or drink nothing. That's just what we have. Sorry, dude. And he was fine after that.
If you're seeing that as like a reoccurring thing, then we can just teach them the rule. You know, if they don't have what you want, you say, oh, I wish they had milk, but okay, you know, teach them the replacement thing to say, and then we'll take data on in vivo. Is he able to use the replacement behavior that we've taught?
What'd you have for snack yesterday at school? What was there? But you didn't like it. What was there? Do you remember?
Peaches. And peaches are good.
What else?
Peaches
are peaches good for me?
I love peaches. I think they're so good, and they're very good for you. They have lots of vitamins.
And what else? I don't like them. Yeah.
That's okay. You can just say, I don't like peaches. So you give the role, have him practice, and then we'll take data on if he's able to implement the rule.
Should I be packing him a juice box? And
No. I think it's good to have him kind of be okay with if it's not there, it's not there.
As much as you can fade back. Only jump in during those times where he really needs you so we can.
So if I say, tell me about a dog, and then you would have to say, a dog has fur, it has a long tail, and 4 legs. Okay? Okay? So I'm going to ask you something. Tell me 3 things about Steven.
Steven is a teacher.
He's a teacher?
He just from his bat cave.
He came from his bat cave?
And he doesn't live on the street.
And he what?
And he doesn't live on the street.
And he doesn't live on a street? Okay, I'll take it. Tell me 3 things about a kitty cat.
A kitty cat, just an animal, and
It's an animal,
and it's somebody's pet.
And it's somebody's pet.
And Swanee has one. And Swanee has a dog.
No, so it's a pet, it's an animal, and
it's fat.
And it's fat? Can you say something else about it? How many legs does it have?
4.
It has 4 legs. Okay, so tell me 3 things about a cat.
A cat
You said it's
is
a-
somebody's pet.
somebody's pet?
And he has fur.
And it's fur,
And he kind of has 4 legs.
And he has 4 legs. Very good. Tell me 3 things about Lainey Grace.
Lainey Grace is a baby.
She's a baby?
And she's 1 year old.
And she's 1 years old?
And she's my baby.
And she's your baby?
That's
your baby? She's my sister.
She's my sister.
Okay, so all by yourself. Tell me 3 things about Lainey Grace. All by yourself. Go.
Lainey is small and
She's
1
small.
year old.
She's 1 year old.
And she's pretty cool.
And she's pretty cool? I think she's pretty cool too.
Oh, it hurts your face. You smile so hard. It's delightful. But want to talk a little bit about how this goes together with antecedents, because they're talking about, and I missed the first little part about it, but they're talking about difficulties that he's having because they don't always have what he wants. And you notice that his supervisor says, well, let's just teach him what the appropriate responses are for when that happens so that we don't get to the behavior. That's an antecedent modification. Giving him the language, there's that moment where they're talking with him about peaches and he's like, are peaches good for you? First of all, brilliant question, right? Which they've worked with him to get to the point where he asks those kinds of questions. That just didn't happen. Go back and watch the beginning of the series because Jack Riley wasn't doing that. He wasn't asking WH questions until they did that lesson with him. But he says, peach is good for you? And they say yes. And he says, but I don't like them, right? Because we're starting to be able to teach. And she says, that's okay. And you can say that. They're teaching him what appropriate responses are and what appropriate reactions are so that he doesn't have to completely blow his stack to get things. It kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking before about compliance, is that, earlier when Jack Riley didn't have all those words to be able to say that, he would engage in challenging behavior. If they had presented a peach to him, if you watch those early episodes, they would show him a banana and the child would lose it entirely. There were tears. And some tantrums over it because he didn't want to be, and they went through a whole bunch of things to get him systematically desensitized to food so that he could eat different things. But, part of it too is giving him the language to be able to say things. Before he would just tantrum, and there were times when the parents felt helpless, like we don't know what's happening. There's a tantrum that they catch on the video that right as soon as the tantrum is over, he goes under the dining room table to take a poo. And the mom says, Cheryl says, I feel so bad because he went through that whole thing and he just couldn't get to the point where he said, I need to poop. Because if he had said, I need to poop, we would have stopped the lesson and let him go poop, but we didn't know. And, the level of frustration for a parent when you don't know what the child needs is huge, right? You feel absolutely helpless, but put yourself in their shoes for a minute and think about, here are these people who are trying to get me to do these things, and all I want to do is take a poop. I need to take a poop and I'm uncomfortable right now and I'd like to be alone under the table to take the poop and nobody is getting it. How frustrating it is for them. So there is that period of time in which it really starts to happen when they see that glimmer of sometimes I'm able to convince you that I need to do something, but I don't know how to do it all the time. How frustrating that will be. We know that teaching a child to mand, and mand is when you can request something. That's the beginning of all of this work, right? Is the beginning of a mand is teaching them to request. It can be with words. It can be with a device like an iPad or something like that. It can be with a PEX system where they just give you a card and say that they want something. But it's so important that we get to the point where they can clearly request something that they need. And that when that happens, you will see that the compliance will go up too. I always say it's like the magic X on the graphs, because they'll chart the challenging behaviors, which are going up, 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 right? And then they'll put manding in, and instead the manding, if you chart on how often manding is happening, it becomes the thing that goes up when you're teaching it, and the challenging behavior crosses it like this in the middle, because the challenging behavior starts to go down. And when you see that magic X on your child's chart, that their manding is going up and their challenging behavior is going down, it's the beginning of all good things right there. Not just for you as a parent, but it's a beginning of really good things for your kid. Oh my gosh, the empowerment of being able to say, I want, whether it's I want water, I want sleep, I want mom, I want to take a poop. You know, those are vital, vital things to a person's happiness. I always think about the mom whose son was nonverbal, and she said, I just want him to be able to quickly, on his device, be able to tell me what topping he wants on his baked potato. If I could have that, then my life would be so much better, because I would know that he wouldn't have to get to the level of frustration to say, I want sour cream and chives. We take a lot for granted a lot of times. Those of us who have the ability to use our voices, the amount of frustration that it must be to not be able to tell people what you need and what you want. Oof. So we need to give that power to our folks on the autism spectrum. And when we do, they will be happier and we will be happier too. All right. Speaking of all of that, of everybody getting happier, it's time for us now to take a break, because when we come back, we have a special guest who's going to be joining us from Hawaii. Oof. Don't we all wish we could be in Hawaii right now? But Amanda Kelly is otherwise known as Behavior Babe, is going to be with us from HABA. And she's going to tell us what HABA stands for so that I don't get it wrong, and tell us about what HABA is doing, what she does as the Behavior Babe, and something that they've decided to do for parents, to help parents to know more of the things, the kinds of things that we talk about here on the show, in a really substantive way to get parent training. So stick with us. We're going to be back with Behavior Babe after these messages.
Riley has high-functioning autism, and I'd say I noticed somewhere between 9 months and a year. Looking back now, I can tell you everything. I mean, there was no pointing, there was no shared experiences, speech was not coming, the interactive play was not coming, those things weren't happening. You know, you go to the pediatrician, they tell you, well, sometimes boys are slow or things might take a while to come along, but it still wasn't happening. And right when he hit the 2-year-old room in preschool is when the wheels fell off the wagon. That's when we got some intervention. That's when we figured out, you know, how are we going to address this problem. The first thing I did was I got a mentor, because there's no book on what to do with your autistic child. I mean, there's many books, but each path is individual. So I got a mentor, a really nice woman named Marlene. She has a daughter with Asperger's, and she told me, go to a psychiatrist so you can have your child fully diagnosed and a rock-solid diagnosis that can't really be attacked. Call CARD and do whatever they tell you to do. That was probably the thing she talked about the most. Get in touch with CARD. She actually put me in touch with Evelyn from CARD, and calling CARD was like amazing. because I really felt like things were finally going to be okay. We were going to get the help we needed.
We tried a number of different things before we could get into CARD, and you could really see the difference in the data keeping, really addressing what his issues were, whereas the other places we had been, it seemed pointless to me.
We've talked about this, and I feel like we met a lot of really nice, well-intentioned people.
Right.
And then when we got to CARD, we met a lot of really nice people who could help us because they had the experience. It was ABA, which I think is the only way to go with your child if you're trying to overcome autism. And if you go to CARD, the people are so qualified and there's so much of a database on how to approach this. It's just like they come right in, and we started off with, let's have Riley sit down for 2 seconds, because he couldn't even get that. And we worked on baby steps until now he's in 1st grade and he's working at grade level. So it just starts with baby steps and it keeps working on, because they have a way to approach every single problem, every single tantrum, every single thing you're going to come up with. They have a way to approach it and help you get through it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed, like at our clinic, we'll be having a specific problem and how good they are, all of them, the therapist and your team leader, at coming up with a solution, something to try, and it almost always works. Whatever the particular behavior you're trying to deal with, they're really good at them. They know the answers.
He likes a lot of stuff I think regular 7-year-olds like. He likes to swim.
He loves to swim.
He's a fish. Likes to ride a scooter, loves Toy Story, loves playing on the iPad.
Loves
Justin Bieber.
Thought you all be mine.
Good job, buddy.
High five.
High five.
High five.
Yeah.
CARD's been good about encouraging us to do things that maybe wouldn't occur to us, like him learning to ride a bike was really them saying, hey, it's time, let's do this, and helping us do that, and so he can ride a bike. He's still working on the brakes a little bit, but you know, he can pedal a bike. We can go to Balboa Park and he'll ride happy as a clam along the bike path.
If you think something's wrong, it's not about you. Don't bury your head in the sand. Go get help, because the help is out there to make your life and your child's life just so much better. And if you're lucky enough to get in with CARD, I can't even tell you what a difference it's made in our lives from 4 years ago. Just the quality of life we have, the quality of life Riley has, the progress he's made from being a child who wanted to stay in his room and play Toy Story and line up his Toy Story dolls all day, to a 1st grader who's working at grade level. It couldn't have happened without CARD intervention, without ABA, and without all the wonderful people we met there.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Very excited because joining us via Skype from Hawaii right now is Dr. Amanda Kelly. She is the president of HABA, and she's here today with us to talk about something really exciting that HABA has done, a partnership that they have created with IBT, which we talk a little bit about on this show. But first of all, Dr. Kelly, welcome to Autism Live.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Thrilled that you're here. Can you clarify for us what HABA stands for?
Of course. We're in the land of acronyms. HABA stands for the Hawaii Association for Behavior Analysis.
Wonderful. So you are very involved with autism in Hawaii, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's true.
And
pretty much consumes me, I would say.
Yeah. Yes. And my understanding is that that there haven't been enough services, like in a lot of places in the world, to go around for individuals, for families that are dealing with autism in Hawaii. Is that correct?
It is. I mean, our difficulties here are really vast, ranging from diagnosis to understanding from physicians to access to services, and then funding sources for those services that do exist. So that's very difficult for families here.
And yet you have taken a very proactive stance, and HABA has done something. You just announced a new initiative that you're doing in conjunction with IBT, which I think is so forward thinking. I just have to applaud you. I think it's kind of remarkable. So tell our viewers at home what HABA has decided to do.
Well, I mean, I would really be, I think it's more appropriate to thank IBT and CARD for their collaboration and their suggestion. So HABA is interested in partnering with anybody who's really dedicated to helping us promote our mission, which is disseminating behavior analysis and getting services in the hands and the families who need them here. So through our partnership currently with IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training, we've been able to put free parent trainings in the hands of many families who otherwise would not have access to services, who do not currently have access to consultants, and who may certainly not be getting this sort of treatment from their school systems. In general, Hawaii is viewed as being about 15 to 20 years behind your sort of education system on the mainland. And so for parents to be able to access this, some of the barriers are even access to computers. So we've also put this information at libraries where we know many of our families do go to access the internet.
Well, I think it's pure genius. I think so often when people are looking at how are we going to help the autism community, that there is this untapped resource, which is the desperate parent. As I'm a parent, and I have been in the desperate place and wanting to learn about how do I help my child, how do I become a part of my child's team. I just can't think of a greater gift that you guys could give the parents, and a better way to harness that resource that you have to be able to help those kids. I think it's remarkable. How can parents who are in Hawaii find out more information about how they can access this, Dr. Kelly?
That's a great question. On our HABA website, which is www.haba, H-A-B-A, actually it's hawaiiaba.org. HABA is H-A-B-A. If you go to hawaiiaba.org, you can go under news, and we have the press release there, and the way to get information is just simply through an email, and then the codes will be sent directly to families. We released this just last week. It was announced towards the end of last week, and I've been informed that we have several families who have already reached out and who are accessing the services, which we're incredibly grateful for.
Well, I think it's remarkable. I hope that the world is watching. And, you know, there have been so many studies that have come out recently showing how much more effective an ABA program is if parents get good quality training. So I think maybe you're behind in some respects, but I think you're ahead in a lot of the ways that are really, really important. And again, I hope the world is watching so that they see the result that you get from putting this information in parents' hands.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you a lot. And we're really grateful for the partnerships with many different organizations, but certainly with IBT for this newest collaboration.
And I do need to remind people that if they want more information about IBT, which is Institute for Behavioral Training, as you said, you can go to ibehavioraltraining.com. Those trainings are available to people around the world at a really affordable cost. But Dr. Kelly, we have more to talk about with you, because I was so interested to hear when I found out about you and they said she's the behavior babe. And so I have questions for you about that. And I understand that there is a Behavior Babe app. So I have to know more about that. So we're going to take a short break. If you don't mind sticking with us, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with more with Dr. Amanda Kelly, Behavior Babe, after this.
Looking for some cheap festive napkins for your next party with your kids? Look no further. We're going to be making some hand-dyed paper napkins. While we make this fun activity, you'll notice that these icons will pop up. These icons leave important information about the skill and where to find it on the Skills program. Skills is an ABA-based online tool that helps parents create curriculum to help teach their children on the autism spectrum. And if you're already a Skills user, this will ensure that you get the most out of this fun activity with your child. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are paper towels, food coloring, water, a bowl, and rubber bands. Step 1, you're going to take your paper towel and you're going to fold it symmetrically into a shape. This is a chance to be creative to see how repeating patterns are going to be made. Once your paper towels have been folded into different types of shapes and patterns, you're going to take your rubber band and you're going to use that to secure it in place. These are my folded up napkins. Now that they're ready, I'm going to take my water and mix it up with the food coloring and submerge the napkins in it. Once they've been submerged with the food coloring, I'm going to take it out and lay it flat to dry. If you leave it in the water too long, they're going to completely disintegrate, so just leave them in for just a moment. I've been very patient, and here is my finished pattern napkin. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with me today. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye!
To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parent icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're still with I got so excited because it's in Hawaii. We're via Skype with Dr. Amanda Kelly. She is the president of HABA, and we've been talking with her about some of the things that HABA has been doing, in fact, forming a partnership with IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training. But you brought up an interesting point during the break that for those of us who don't live in Hawaii, it is a series of different islands, and I would imagine, are the services slightly different in different areas in Hawaii?
Yeah, I would say they're vastly different. We have eight Hawaiian islands, and most of our services right now, or families who can access services, are military families through TRICARE. And all of our military bases are located on Oahu. So if you go to the Big Island, if you go to Maui, if you go to Lanai, you're looking at very few, if any, behavior analysts. I know on the Big Island we have one BCBA at this moment.
Wow, amazing. But it's across all of Hawaii, all of the islands, that they can gain access to that training through Institute for Behavioral Training. Absolutely. Okay, wonderful. And tell us again the website for HABA where they can go to link up to those.
Sure, yep. It's hawaiiaba.org.
Okay, great. Now, I mentioned before the break that I just thought it was so fun that you're known as Behavior Babe. I think that's so fun. So how did you get this title, Behavior Babe?
It started, I think, in 2009. We were going to a conference, one of the ABAI conferences, and Twitter had just sort of kind of taken off, and everyone was looking for a screen name. And people were coming up with really funny names, really hilarious plays on words. And so I was like, Behavior Girl, Behavior Lady, Behavior Babe. And I really am a fan of alliteration, and it just kind of stuck. I had no idea at the time that I was going to have as many Facebook followers or many hits or even an expansive website as I ended up with.
Well, so. I think it's very cool. And now there's a Behavior Babe app. So tell me about this app. What does it do?
Pretty much everything. It was designed by myself and a colleague of mine, Laura Bollinger. We had no app designers. We do consider ourselves internet ninjas now. But it has access to the live Behavior Babe Facebook feed as well as the YouTube video modeling videos. It also has several different pages of study materials for students who are pursuing certification. And then it does have a separate parent section where I talk about facts and fads, misconceptions, and maybe questions to ask your provider. So I would say it has about 70 pages of content in total. So it's many years in the making.
Dr. Kelly, you're rocking this. So where is this app available on all platforms? Is that
Currently,
even the right question?
It's only available in iTunes. We are working on a version for the Google Play and for Android that we hope to have out maybe by the end of the month, if not maybe by the end of next month.
And is there a cost for the app?
There is. We're keeping the cost as minimal as possible. Right now it's $1.99 on the iTunes store. Okay, love that. And if people have more questions about anything that you've talked about here, best website to send them to? Any of my websites really would be good, but I would say you can go to behaviorbabe.com for anything related to Behavior Babe. You can also contact me. It's behaviorbabe@yahoo.com. I try to keep things simple. And again, the website for the Hawaii organization is hawaiiaba.org. Okay. Now, I have been to an ABAI conference, and I feel like I interviewed someone who was the behavior dude. Now, or the behavior guy, or something like that. Now, is this somebody you're friends with? Are you going to conquer the world together? Yeah, we've kind of had this really interesting extended family here. There's behavior man, behavior guy, behavior Jedi, behavior mommy. And we're all collaborators together, or we certainly support each other's collaboration. Our goal is to have behavior analysis disseminated in a way that is fun and accessible. So anyone who wants to jump on board, we welcome you. Come on in.
Love that. And I love that you're an internet ninja. Now I know who to call when I need to know something I need to know. Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for being with us. We, again, applaud you and we applaud Haba for your just groundbreaking partnership with the Institute for Behavioral Training to get parents in Hawaii the proper training. And we'll be looking for your app, Behavior Babe. Absolutely love it.
Thank you. Right now, we are also fighting for autism insurance here in the state. We're one of 12 states left. So keep thinking of us. And if you have any good information, please email me and share with me. Thanks.
All right. Absolutely. We'll be pulling for you. I'm sure that you've talked to the folks at Autism Votes.
Yes, I have my pen right here. Lori Unum has been incredibly helpful, as her entire team has as well. Yes.
Okay, because we have Shelly Hendricks on the show on a frequent basis, and if there's anybody who can get it done, boy, they like to get in and get things done.
She's a spitfire for sure.
Isn't
Shelley.
she just? She really is. We absolutely love her. So we'll look forward to celebrating with you when it happens, when you get insurance reform. Because I know for sure that there will be more BCBAs there once you get that.
Absolutely. We welcome you.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. And stay in touch with us because we can't wait to hear what happens.
All right. Thank you so much, Shannon.
All right. Bye-bye for now. Really remarkable. I have to say again how incredible it is. We love it when people see the power in parents learning what they need to learn. I think it's really remarkable. We're going to take a break and be back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
Hello there, fellow activist. You're an activist because you're making the world a better place for someone living with autism. Now on Autism Live, you learn all about your children. You learn about their bodies and their brains. But this empowerment moment is all about you. It's about your heart and your soul. Now don't worry, I'm not going to have you start singing Kumbaya or doing chanting. Let's talk about blessings. One of the blessings of living with a child with autism is learning to love them unconditionally. Learning to love them despite all the ups and downs, all the sacrifices. In fact, you learn to love them more so because of them. I call this my empowerment prayer. God grant me the wisdom to see my disability as an opportunity, the courage to love my child unconditionally, and the faith to live a life of purpose. So going from the sublime to the ridiculous, I have a little song for you today. It's a rap song, so I know that an old or, middle-aged white woman rapping just doesn't seem right, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. My style is a little like Nicki Minaj meets Dr. Seuss. Nancy's Autism Rap. It's just a diagnosis, your life's not over. Don't lay there like a dog, get up, Rover. You say your head is spinning with GF, CF, ABA, IEPs, and neurofeedback? Autism tough, that much is true. But you'll survive because you're you. Your life's not over, it's just begun, so walk out that door and go be someone. More Dr. Seuss than Nicki Minaj. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think.
Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome.
Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Little program note, I want to remind everybody that on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, we have Dr. Linda Copeland, and she is remarkable because she's not only a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, but she is also a developmental pediatrician. And it's my understanding that there may be one other of this in the world, but we're not sure that they're even a developmental pediatrician. I'm telling you, she's a unicorn. It's like an amazing thing to have both of those things in one person. She joins us every 3rd Tuesday, and you can ask her questions on the show. I really like to get the questions to her ahead of time. So if I could be getting questions now, I've already gotten a question that came in this morning that I want to save to have with Dr. Copeland. But I also am concerned about making you wait a week, because the question is, hi Shannon, my son has been glancing upwards and winking one eye while he has been sick with the flu. He does this intermittently. Is this common or a symptom of something else? If we need to evaluate, which kind of doctor would we see? Neurologist, thank you for your show. Now, we're going to ask Dr. Copeland this question, but I don't want you to wait a week, right? I don't know whether your son still has the flu, but you know, there's sort of like a series of things that you can start to do whenever your child is having, you know, any kind of issues. And I think the first, and it's worth talking about, you know, the first thing that we all need to make sure that we have is a pediatrician that we can trust, that gets where we're coming from, that doesn't have one of those complexes where they are convinced that they have to act like they know everything, because that will not serve us well, right? So if you have a good quality pediatrician, the pediatrician that I have, I wish that I could find that for everybody, because he is remarkable. But I will tell you that I didn't always have him, and in the beginning, when I didn't have him, I had my wish list of what was I looking for in a pediatrician. And on my list, and everybody's list is going to be different, right? I need to have somebody who was going to listen to me and listen to my fears, and that they were going to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I wanted that because we were about to start a pretty intensive yeast intervention with my child. And our doctor that was prescribing the medicine for that was in another state. And I thought, if we get into a sticky wicket and my child is sick on a Saturday night at, 11:35 p.m., I want to be able to call somebody, know that I'm going to get somebody who knows who my son is. And if I have to go to the emergency room, is going to call the emergency room ahead, because we had gone through a flu bout with my son where we went to the emergency room and they sent us home. And his little friend who was in preschool with him, who did not have autism, went at the same time, same exact symptoms, same strain of flu, same number of days of illness, same throwing up. I would venture that my son was sicker, and they gave that child IV fluids, and that child went home and went back to school within 2 days, and my son was sick for 2 weeks. And I vowed after that I was going to make sure that I had somebody who was in my corner, so that they would, because they get nervous in the emergency room and they go, oh, it's autism, we don't want to do an IV, because we don't know how to behaviorally handle it, is the thing that they're saying. So you got to have somebody in your corner. And for me, I wanted somebody who was available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that I could call with this kind of a question and say, hey, this is happening. I've looked a little bit on the internet. This is what I found out. What do you think? What do you you know, what do I need to be concerned about? Because that doctor is going to look at things from a medical standpoint and say, okay, you know, it could be X, Y, and Z, and this one is concerning enough that you need to come into the office. Because, you know, I don't know. I will tell you that anytime our children have gone through, it's a good idea to have our kids on a good quality probiotic just in general. But anytime they've gone through any kind of an illness, you really want to make sure. Like I'd love to tell you to be on a probiotic just all the time, and you know, sometimes you can change them up. It's a good thing to do for our kids, but especially if you say, I'm just not that interested. If our kids have been sick with any kind of an illness, make sure that you give your child a probiotic as soon as you can, either during or afterward, because it will help them to get things back on track. And especially, I'm pleading with you, begging with you, if you've given your child an antibiotic for any reason, to make sure that your child afterwards is on a probiotic for a period of time so that they can recoup and get better. We will see sometimes that kids will have a difference in how they look at things after an illness, after antibiotic. It could be signs of a whole host of different things having to do with yeast. A probiotic isn't going to harm any of those things. It might be just enough to get them back on the right track. But so those are the two things that I would say to you. Call your pediatrician, run these things past your pediatrician. I don't think, if the flu was just last week, I don't think it's time to call a neurologist yet, but we'll definitely ask that of Dr. Copeland next week. But I would say get the probiotic on board just to see what's happening there. I see with my son, if he gets a fever, eye contact is whoosh, right there, better than it ever is. But sometimes after he's sick, we get a little bit of a yeast imbalance, and he's back to looking at things out of the corner of his eye. And then we just kind of clean up. We'll reduce. He doesn't have sugar in his diet anyway for that reason, but we'll kind of reduce the fruit. Like sometimes I'll just give him a lot of citrus when he's sick because it's got all that vitamin C in it, and I find that I got to reduce that a little bit, just pull back on it a little bit, give him a good probiotic, and you know, give him a week or so with a lot less fruit sugar in it. And if you're somebody who's giving your child sugar, it might be a good time to pull back on that now too as well. Don't just say that, because obviously I'm not a doctor. I want you to talk to your pediatrician, and I want you to talk to Dr. Copeland next week. But those are some things that you can look at right now that are within your power. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go back to basics and talk about the function of a behavior. Function. What's your function, you silly little behavior? And we'll talk about how we use the antecedent then to, once we know the function of the behavior, to put in place some things that can change everything for the better. So stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So we're taking it back to the basics this week, partially because Dr. Grandpichet said last week on the show during Ask Dr. Doreen, she said, you know, whenever you got a challenging behavior, it's time to take it back to the basics. And I thought, you know, we haven't done that in a while. So our jargon today was antecedent. And even before we start to talk about antecedent, when you enter the world of ABA, which is applied behavior analysis, as an autism parent or as a teacher or as an individual who's on the spectrum, and you hear about this, say ABA, and you ask somebody, what is it? It's a science of behavior. It's been around for a long time. It's not, it was not invented to help with autism, and there are a great many people who are board certified behavior analysts who work with ABA that don't have any experience with autism, right? Because there are lots of other venues in which they use ABA. But it is a way of teaching someone, it's found to be the most effective way of teaching someone to increase behaviors that you want and to decrease behaviors that you don't want. Okay, fabulous. All right. It just so happens that it's been shown to be so effective with autism that it's considered the gold standard of treatment in autism, and has been considered that for over a decade, been recommended by the Surgeon General as the gold standard of treatment for autism. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about. But then we go a little bit deeper and go, so what exactly is it? And a lot of times what you'll see are people sitting at a table doing something called DTT, discrete trial teaching, and people call that ABA. I always like to remind everybody that DTT is one aspect of ABA, and I like to compare it to your car. If ABA is your car, then DTT is the steering wheel of your car. You would never refer to your car as your steering wheel, right? Because it's just one element of your car. It's a very important element. I wouldn't want to go driving my car without a steering wheel, but I would never refer to my car. It takes a lot more than the steering wheel. You never are going to drive to Vegas with your steering wheel, right? You wouldn't get there. You wouldn't get around the block. Same thing with DTT and ABA. You got to have the whole package. So let's talk about some of the basic principles of ABA, of how are we going to look at behavior so that we have the means to change and increase behaviors we want to see more of and decrease behaviors that we want to see less of. And we get to decide which those behaviors are, right? We can teach behaviors that are not socially acceptable if we want to. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times we do, because we don't understand how behavior works. So let's break it down. How does behavior work? We talk all the time on the show. I call it principle number 1, which is that any behavior that somebody does again and again and again, there's only one reason why they will do it, and that's because there's something about it that's rewarding personally to them. We can try, and people have tried in studies to try to get people to do something that's important to somebody else, but the truth of the matter is it has to be rewarding enough to the person. Now, you know, there's lots of things that you could get me to do because I know that it would be rewarding to my son, right? But that's because that's rewarding to me when my son is rewarded. And we're not going to find that in all people. So it gets kind of tricky. but it has to be something that's meaningful to the individual. The truth is that any behavior that isn't personally rewarding to us, we're not going to do long term. You know, there's all these job coaches and people who try to get you to do something for 21 days or 28 days or 31 days, because supposedly if you do something for that amount of time, it becomes a habit. Well, I don't know about that, because we've all done an exercise program for 21 days and then on day 27 decided, I'd rather sit home and watch something on TV, and then it all starts to unravel and we're not doing the exercise program, right? It's not because we're not good people. It's not because the exercise program wasn't good, and it's certainly not that the exercise program wasn't effective. It's that it didn't have enough of a paycheck. It might have had a slight one. We felt better, you know, our body felt better, we were in less pain, but it still wasn't enough of a personal paycheck for us to maintain it. When it's enough of a paycheck, we will do almost anything. If it means enough to us, we will do it. Okay, so that's where reinforcement comes in. And we want to make sure that we're reinforcing behaviors that we want to see more of, and we want to decrease behaviors that we want to see less of. Now, we talked a little bit before about antecedents and how important that is, because there's something called the three-term contingent, that we can take any behavior, and I call it the ABCs of behavior, because the A is antecedent, the B is the behavior, and the C is the consequence. It's the ABC of behavior. The A, antecedent, is what happens before the behavior. The behavior is the behavior that actually happens, and the consequence is what happens as a result. The example that I always like to use, because people go, it's not true. Everything is not an ABC. Every behavior that I engage in is not an ABC, except that it is. And this is the first buy-in that I'll ask you to do. If you just take this and apply life for the next 24 hours, and if you find that you think it's all a bunch of hooey, then this probably isn't the place for you, right? But I think what you'll find is, that there kind of is something to this, and it becomes sort of like a new toy of okay, what's the ABC of this behavior? And the example I always like to use is, at some point in the day, every single day, all of us turn on a light, right? It's a behavior. We do it. Why? Why do you, oh, look at Kelby, he found my ABC slide. Why do you engage in the behavior? Well, there's an antecedent that happens before. It might be that every day at a certain time you're doing something and you get up and turn on a light switch because it started to get dark in the room because the sun is starting to set. And you wanted to flood the room with light. So the antecedent was you couldn't really see. It got to a level of uncomfortable. You got up, you flipped the light switch. That's the behavior that you're used to. You flip the light switch, and the consequence is light floods the room and you're able to do the thing that you want to do. Now, you got a reward for flipping that, for doing that behavior. The reward was that light came on. Right? So what happens to you in your house when you go to a light switch and the light isn't working, right? What do? I know I do a thing where I flip the light switch 100 times because it worked. I've been trained I do this and light comes on and I want the light to come on. I don't understand how it works, but I know that I flip it and the light comes on. Now, I shared a couple of years ago that we had a light in our bathroom, in our master bathroom, that it stopped working, and we changed something, it still wasn't working, and for months I would come in and I would flip the light switch and the thing wouldn't come on, and I would get so frustrated and be so but eventually I learned that it wasn't going to come on. And believe me, we had repair people there. We tried everything that we could. It wasn't working. And eventually, I stopped coming in and turning that light on. I found something else to do. I turned a different light on and stopped doing that. Eventually, we got the right person in, and the light worked, but I had stopped doing the light switch because I hadn't gotten the paycheck for it. It's a powerful, powerful thing, being able to get that reward for a behavior on a regular basis. We all become trained to do certain things. So now take it to anything that a child might do. We had somebody write in today and say that a behavior that they would like to change is that their child bites their nails constantly. Okay, so we want to stop and ask ourselves, what's the function of this behavior? What's the paycheck for it, right? We're going to ask ourselves about what's the antecedent, what's the behavior, what's the consequence, right? Because that's going to help us to know what the function of the behavior is. If when the child, for instance, bites their nails, mom comes over and gives them a cookie because it's going to compete with the biting the nails, right? And so instead of biting their nails, they get the cookie, then we know the consequence for that behavior was they got the cookie. And if we keep doing that, the child will learn, I don't have to bite my nails, you know, or if I bite my nails, I don't have to ask for a cookie. If I bite my nails just a little, mom's going to come over and give me a cookie. In that way, we sometimes will teach someone a behavior that we don't want them to link up with something. Perfect example, my son, when he was little, before we started ABA, if I would ask him to do something, and a lot of times I let him get away with murder because I didn't want the tantrum, right? But if I would ask him to do something and he didn't want to do it, he would go into our kitchen, and he would lay on the floor, and he would bang his head on the floor. And what would I do when that would happen? I would go, what is that? That's like some crazy autism behavior that I don't know what to do with, and I don't understand why he's doing that. It just, you know, it has no rhyme or reason. And I would go scoop him up and take him to the rocking chair and pet his head, and he would be screaming and crying in pain. And I would pet his head, and I would rock him, and I would sing to him, and I would give him a sippy cup of juice, and we would have this happy, happy moment. And he didn't, and I forgot whatever the thing was that I was asking him to do. Well, what I had done is taught my child, if you don't want to do something that I've asked you to do, go hurt yourself, and you will get this huge, luscious reward mom will stop doing whatever she was doing. I'm not on the phone anymore. I'm not cooking dinner anymore. I'm rocking you and holding you and loving you up. So my son was doing it more as opposed to less because I wasn't paying attention to what the antecedent was. If I had stopped to say, okay, wait a second. When is this hitting the head on the floor happening? It's happening right after I ask him to do something. Or it's happening when I'm on the phone and he's pulling on me and I'm going, you know, I'm on the phone and not having the time for him. Because we know that there's 4 basic reasons why our kids engage in challenging behavior. I call them the 4 usual suspects. One is for attention. And we need to remember always that kids, not just kids, adults, if people need attention, if they're that bottomless pit for attention and they need attention, they'll do whatever it takes to get any kind of attention, not just positive attention. And we set up a very bad circumstance where they will misbehave so that we will yell at them because that's attention. We don't want our kids to be attention deprived. But another reason why they might engage in the challenging behavior is to escape from something. So my son didn't want to do whatever it was that I was asking him to do, so he engaged in this challenging behavior so that he could get out of it. And it worked. So why wouldn't he do it again and again? Yeah, there was some momentary pain, but the truth was the pain for him was much better because the paycheck was so much bigger if he was willing to have the pain than what he would have had to do to go through the thing that I was asking him to do that he didn't want to do. So our kids do things to escape things, and they will do so much, including eloping and running into traffic to get away from things that they don't want to do. They don't understand the consequences of those things. The third thing is to gain access to someone or something. If we see in the A word that there's a period of time in which Jack Riley wants to go out and he'll ask for grass. He wants to go out and be on the grass, but he hasn't learned how to wait. And so he'll be walking on the sidewalk and he'll ask for grass. And if mom's doing something else and she can't right there, they're in the middle of the street and she can't go to grass, Jack Riley will bite her. So that he can, once he bites her and she pulls her hand back and says, ow, he runs to the grass. She runs and gets him and pulls him back and says, no, but he got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. He gained access to the grass. My son was in the, we're almost out of time. My son was in the YMCA children's area. I would put him there and I would go get on a machine and they would call me back 2 minutes later and said, he just threw something at somebody. Well, what he learned was if I want access to mom, I do this, they go get her, we get to go home, which is where I'd rather be. And then the last reason why kids will engage in something is called automatic reinforcing. So they will do it because there's something about it that feels good. Sometimes our kids will bite themselves because it feels good. Okay, why am I distracting you by folding a paper into 3 columns? Because this is what you want to do when you want to figure out what the ABC of a behavior is. You fold your paper and you start to keep a behavior log. And you label at the top A, B, C. So your child throws a tantrum and you write down what the time is, what it looked like, what they did. Write everything you can remember about the behavior. Write that down first, right? Then you write down what happened as a result of it under the consequence, and then try to think back and say what happened beforehand. Keep this log and start to see patterns, and you can give this to your ABA team to have a more effective intervention to change any behavior. We're so out of time, but I want to stop for a second and tell you about our show tomorrow. Dr. Doreen Grampiche will be here and she will be answering your questions live during Ask Dr. Doreen. Then during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Allspot Jackson will be here with me. We will have Deborah L. Smith. She is the Autism Resource Mom, ARM. You can find them on Facebook. She's going to be with us talking about her blog and how she likes to hook up parents to resources that can help them. So that's tomorrow. But until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.